Welcome back. In this lesson, we'll be learning about in-component route guards. In the application we've been building together, if the internet hangs for some reason, what happens? Our user just waits there until finally things appear. That's not a great user experience. One solution to solve this problem would be a progress bar. We'll learn how to implement one in this lesson. We can do this by using in-component route guards or global and per route guards. In this lesson, we'll be implementing it using the first. To do this, first we'll move our API call into an in-component route guard. Then we'll install the nProgress progress bar library. We'll start the progress bar when routing to the component and finish the progress bar when the API call finishes. Finally, we'll need to make sure that pagination still works after we implement it. There are 3 in-component route guards, or hooks, provided by ViewRouter. These are additional lifecycle hooks, just like the created, mounted, and updated lifecycle hook. The first one, before route enter, takes up to 3 parameters and is called before the component is created, so it won't have access to this. We often use this inside our component to reference the reactive data or the props. Then there's the before route update hook. This is called when a route changes, but the component it's using has not. And it does have access to this. Lastly, there's before route leave, which is called when a route is navigated away from, and does have access to this. I'll give you an example of how to use each of these in this lesson. But first, let's take a look at these parameters. Route to is the route that is about to get navigated to. Route from is a route that is about to get navigated away from. And next is a function that's optionally used to resolve the hook and continue navigation. In View 2, we had to use next. But with View 3, we have a few other options, which I'll show you later on. In any of these callbacks, if we call next, it will continue navigation to the component listed in Route 2. If we call next false, it will cancel the navigation and stay on the current page. If we call next with a string, it'll redirect to that path. And if we call next with a named path, it'll redirect there. Let's jump right into an example. Let's say we're on the edit event page in our application, and the user fills out a bunch of things on the form, doesn't hit save, and then tries to navigate away. It would be nice to have a little pop-up that says, "Are you sure you have unsaved changes?" How would we do that? Inside of our edit event component, we might create a new unsaved changes property. So if there are unsaved changes, we'll set it to true. Then we'll use the before route leave navigation guard and check to see if unsaved changes is true. If it's not, we'll confirm the navigation away from the form. Otherwise, we'll call window.confirm. This will pop up a JavaScript alert which asks, "Do you really want to leave? You have unsaved changes." If they click on OK, answer will be true, and then we can confirm navigation away from this component. Otherwise, we'll call next false, which will cancel the navigation. Let's take a look at this in action. So we'll set unsaved changes to true. Now on our page, first we'll navigate to our edit event component. Now when we try to navigate away, it gives us that confirmation. If we hit cancel, it runs next false and cancels the navigation. However, if we run it again and click OK, it confirms the navigation. What if we change unsaved changes to false? Now in the browser, we go to edit, and when we try to navigate away, it just calls next and allows the navigation to occur. I mentioned there's some new functionality in ViewRouter version 4. Optionally, you can use the return value instead of using next. So with no return value, navigation will continue, and if I return false, the navigation will stop. How might that look if we implemented it? Here we have our alert. Without a return value, navigation will continue away from the edit page, so we only really need to check if answer is not true, in which case we can return false, and navigation will not continue. This code has the same functionality. So as I mentioned, if we return true, and this goes with any of the routing guards, it'll continue navigation to the component listed in Route 2. I'm sure you can imagine different scenarios where instead of return true, we write return, and then we write an expression. And if it evaluates to true, it continues navigation. If we return false, it'll cancel the navigation. If we return a string, it'll redirect to that path. And if we return the name path, it'll redirect there. Pretty similar to using next, except we're using the return value. Let's go back to our original problem and see if we can implement a progress bar. First, we need to move our API call into an in-component route guard. We'll jump inside the event list component. There's where we make our API call. We don't have access to this, so we'll just delete that. We can't call watch effect because we don't have access to the reactive data. You might think we can just wrap this inside before route enter and include the parameters. Well, you'd be wrong. There's more to this. Remember, since the component isn't loaded yet, we have no access to this. We can't call this.page or this.events or this.total events or even this $router push. The first thing we're going to do, instead of this.page, we'll write parseInt route2.query.page. Essentially parse out the page number from the route we're navigating to. Otherwise, we're on page 1. Then we'll use next in a way you haven't seen yet, sending in an anonymous function. This anonymous function uses comp, which here stands for component, and we'll use that instead of this. When this gets run, it will continue routing, and once the component is loaded, it'll set these values on the component. I'm using comp here, as in component, but you can use anything, and in the documentation you'll see them use VM, and that stands for view model, because that's some weird view internals thing that we don't really need to care about, and I don't think it's that great of a name, which is why I'm using comp. Next, instead of calling router push, we'll simply call next and send in the named route. Now further up in the file, all we need to do here is delete watch effect. We're not using it anymore. If we go back into our browser, we can see everything is indeed working. We don't have our progress bar yet, but now the API call is running, and only once it's returned successfully does the component get loaded. Now with the network disabled, we can see and test that we properly get our network issues component. Now we can go to our next step and install the nprogress progress bar library. We'll do this by running npm install nprogress. Next, we'll open up our main.js file, and inside here, we'll import some nprogress CSS. These are instructions I got from the nprogress library. Then we'll jump inside our event list.view. This is where we'll start the progress bar when routing to the component and finish it when the API call finishes. First, we'll import the nprogress library. And then, when before route enter gets called, we will start the progress bar by calling nprogress start. Then we'll use the finally syntax at the end of our API call. Inside here, we'll call nprogress.done. This ensures that whether or not the API succeeds or fails, this code will get run and the progress bar will get finished. Now inside of our browser, we refresh and we have this beautiful progress bar. And now, even with a slow API call, our user has some feedback to let them know that something is going on. Let's make sure pagination still works. Oh man. So when we go to next and previous, basically nothing's happening. Why is this? Well, back in our code, we're calling before route enter. And enter is only called when a route is being entered from a different one. And in this case, we're reusing the same component from page to page. So it's not getting called. This is where we want to use before route update. So we'll go ahead and copy our code, paste it back in, and change this to before route update. Now, we do have access to this inside update. So now I can just change this comp to this dot events and this dot total events. And now that we're not using this particular functionality of next, we don't even need next. So we can get rid of next and route from, we don't use either of those, and change inside the catch block, return, and then specify the route name. Back inside of our browser, we click on next, get our progress bar, and it works. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about in-component route guards, you might want to read the View Router documentation. And stay tuned to the next lesson, where I'll be teaching you about global and per route guards. Which is why I'm using comp. Pachooey, pachooey chomp.
Pachomp, pachooey chomp, pachooey chomp.